women has proved that it is ahead of actually men in the last 10 years in achieving top marks in universities. And actually, we might have a deficit in merit. Basically, there are now, you find lots of women who are married to men but earning more than the men. And we witnessed the beginning of house husbands in Bahrain, in that the man is the one who looks after the children because the woman could earn more. This is something that is happening in Bahrain now. I know several cases. So after all, that women in this day and age has come a very long distance to achieve its goals and aims, and they are not only equal, they are but at the same time being led, but they are now leading processes in many places, and I look forward to them leading some of the processes in Bahrain.
And what, Abdul Rahman?
Yes. Revolution in Bahrain society has started in the beginning of the 20th century, as I explained earlier. That is progressing. There is no doubt about it. Correct one thing here right now, what Dr. Al-Jamri said. Al-Wafaq, in the last two parliamentary sessions, they never allowed a woman to be nominated there all. But they have nominated themselves this time to enter the parliament. In the last election, 4 women were able to reach to parliament. And credit goes nothing to Al-Wafaq or Shia concept of thinking. Because with all my due respect to Dr. Al-Jamri, they were obstacle in not allowing any woman to enter parliament. And what I'm saying to you, it's a nationwide knowledge. It is not something I have created it. From this base, I can see that future cannot be limited only to, because we have got great ladies, great wives, great, that they participating not only in building society, but to creating future men as well. Because don't forget, the first person to look after a man to be in future is a lady called mother. So if we entrust our mother to look after us, then we should also entrust our daughters, our sisters, and our wives that they are capable of doing it.
And the wives are very important, Mr. Abdul Rahman.
Definitely. Here comes a task we have. How can we make men respect their wives? This is the question. Not the man that can take 4 wives officially and half a dozen temporarily. Society must change with laws. Society must put restrictions. Society must give respect to every single member of it. Man, I come from liberal school. I say, and I do what I say. I'm not preaching and not practicing. This is a fact. What we need, honest people. What we need, decent people. What we need, people to think of the nation and not to think of the sect. What they call themselves democratic-minded should stand for that principle, not a democracy which will be controlled by theocracy. Bahrain is qualified to become a democratic society, but unfortunately, there are certain percentage in our society that they will not accept that, because still their loyalty and their belief is in theocracy and not democracy. They only merchandise the name of democracy in order to put obstacles in implementation of real democracy.
Okay, let's just break off from that topic just for the moment and delve back into the report. One of the most shocking aspects of it was the uncovering of the abuses made by some of the security forces. This has been backed up by this independent commissioned report, talking about the torture of some of those that were detained by the security forces. Mr. Al-Jamri, were you surprised by these findings?
I am. I think this only proves that the BICI came with a very credible report showing that they could report on facts when they found it. If they couldn't find any approval of it, they did not include it. I must say I am surprised by how frank they were, and to stand before the king and to read the abuses, electric shocks and sexual abuse, as well as the torturing and the targeting, collective punishment that we suffer came from people who think another human being is worthy of being oppressed. This is a notion that the world will not accept. The king has said he's going to address this problem, and I think we need to move on for this to move. There's no difference between any human being, a woman and a man, Sunni or Shia, a different place, someone without a religion. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we live in a global village now. There are principles that are governing this global village, and if we break them, principally, if we don't allow freedom of expression, or if we hurt someone because he or she differs us, these two are the biggest crimes to be carried out, not against the person, but against the humanity. They are crimes against humanity when you torture someone just because someone is different from you in faith or different from you in views. It cannot be tolerated. It will not be tolerated. The international community has come to the help of Bahrain. We're very thankful to them, and we're very thankful to the king that he accepted the findings of this independent commission. But now we need an action plan to see there is no impunity for those who perpetrated it. If it is not to be, if these violations were not systematic, there were people who committed it, and those people must be brought to account.
Well, as we speak, we understand there are 20 or so prosecutions already underway. I think that has been clear that they want to make a move on that straight away. And His Majesty himself expressed dismay at the findings in the report and also vowed to ensure that those painful events will never be repeated. Mr. Abdul Rahman, who can guarantee that that will never happen again?
This is a very good question. I mean, yourself, you are an Englishman. Do you think that in your institution, anybody can guarantee that something like that can be avoided maybe next year? You can't. It's their police. But there is no doubt that once now that they know who make such mistakes, they will be punished. I think that will establish a new criteria for the police behavior.
Nazanin, as a journalist also, were you shocked and appalled by the scenes that you saw and the excessive force used by security forces in Bahrain?
Obviously, every time one sees excessive use of force, one is shocked and one is dismayed and one is angered. The report has over 2 pages of recommendations as far as with regard to the use of force and arrest, and obviously there's a lot of thought that has gone into it. As the report also says, one of the basic elements for any democracy, for any society to move forward and to have a free and fair and just society is a system of education. And you need to have an education in place that teaches the students, that teaches the children the value of life, the respect for life, and also teaches the security forces on how to be able to not use violence and yet maintain order, because you do need to have stability and security for democracy to flourish. You cannot have anarchy, but it is all based on education. and education is should be the prime target of any reform-minded politician.
We touched on it very briefly earlier, but what about the influences of Western powers? How much influence has it had on the situation in the region?
Obviously, we live in a globalized world. All economic, financial systems are interconnected. Communication is interconnected. So we no longer live somewhere that, something happens, for example, in Bahrain, and in Washington, they learn about it a month later. But the globalization is more than economics. It is also about politics. It is also about standards of behavior. And I think it is in that sense that even Bahrain can teach others on how to move forward, and by leading as an example.
Mr. Al-Jamri, Great Britain and America have been quite publicly criticising certainly many countries in the region. Do you think any of that is justified, any of that constructive?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
I'm just saying that both Britain and America have been quite critical in terms of what's been happening in the region. Do you see those comments as constructive or justified in any way?
Well, if you're asking about what is being in the media or by parliamentarians, you have to go in the West and commenting about what's going on in our countries. If that was your question, I think what we found that the year 2001 marks the beginning of a new era in the world. It's first of all, for the first time, the Arabs have joined the world community in being part of a civilized movement towards a better, dignified life. Secondly, that we saw the responsiveness of Western media, the Western parliamentarians and the Western politicians coming to the help or coming to criticize even their friends. This is what President Obama said on the 19th of May in his speech on the Arab Spring. He criticized many countries, but people thought he will only criticize Iran because that's the normal country to be criticized. But he turned to Bahrain and he said, the same as we criticize Iran, that we criticize a friend of ours, which is Bahrain, for the violations that are reported, and urged for the investigation and immediate attention to it. So I think, in a way, that I feel we live in a different world, in a better world, where really we share common concepts together, and that we could move towards a better and more peaceful world by respecting the principles and values of every human being living anywhere in the world.
I think what's been made very clear is Bahrain today is at a crossroads, and I think before we wrap things up this evening, we should just really have one final thought on whether we're moving towards a positive future in the country or one maybe of more civil disorder and strife. I'd like to come to each of you in turn, if possible, starting with Mr. Anwar Abdulrahman in Bahrain. What are your final thoughts?
Well, as I said to you in the beginning, I hope that we will be able to heal the wounds of our nation. But I hope that by requesting alone, that wish cannot be fulfilled. All I want, that every party is involved in this, shall I say, future, should understand that we all are going for democracy. And democracy means absolute democracy, and no room for theocracy. If we were able to achieve that, I think we will be one of the very happy nations in this part of the world.
Mr. Al-Jamri, your thoughts on the future?
Ultimately, we are moving forward. Ultimately, we are moving for a better condition. Together, we can do it. I have great belief in my countrymen and in the case.
And Nazanin?
I definitely hope that we are going towards a better future, not only for Bahrain, and hopefully Bahrain will be the first one, and then Iran. We'll have a better future for Iran too.
Okay, well, it's of course been fascinating times with the release of this report. I'd like to thank you all for taking part in this debate. Anwar Abdulrahman in Bahrain, thank you very much for your time this evening. Your thoughts very, very useful in this debate. And also Mr. Mansour Al-Jamri, who's joined us on the phone from New